Many thanks to one original DayZ servers, Classic servers, Sgt. Pepper servers, Sea of Tools Cloud, We The Remain Roleplay, DayZ Sentinel servers, the Struggle Community, the Karma Crew servers, and DayZ Kraken leaderboards for making this video possible. DayZ Frostline Sakhal has changed a lot more than people are aware of in this first update, so in this video we're going to go over the huge buff to Nogovo Airfield and the military containers, why it's much harder to get access to the bunker to get its nerfed amount of loot, and take a first look at the all-new DayZ map tools. This update comes with a few map changes, turning the power plant into a tier 2 military location now, with just as much valuable loot as any other military base inland. 5 military tents have been added along with 2 medical tents and a fleshed out interior here, spawning more military gear on these wooden crates inside. The roof has seen improvements too, with several sandbag fortifications for cover and more military loot up here, along with the regular hunting gear that's still spawning here, making the power plant a must loot location if you're passing through this area. Just south of here is a solitary military tent and a makeshift military checkpoint, with 2 more military checkpoints being added to the south of the main island, which all are tier 2 military. One of them is at Yushnoi, just before the collapsed bridge, holding 3 military tents and 2 regular military containers, with the final checkpoint also having 3 tents, but 3 containers instead, which is just west of Taranay or just north of the new peninsula that was added this patch. The intention of this extended piece of land is to help players find a new way to Burukan instead of only using the oftentimes camped main entrance. Along this ice sheet route you do still get wet swimming across the new gap, which I guess was made for boats, but you only get wet once, so you can make a fire on the other side to warm up and dry. I did try going north to this smaller gap up here, but even the smallest gap will require a swim, albeit a shorter swim for the trouble of a huge detour north, so it's not really worth it. Once on the other side you will be in tier 4 military Burukan, so this route is certainly worth using if you spawn nearer to the south side of the main island, which is now possible with how player spawn points have been shifted in this patch. This is the positions of player spawn points before this patch. Now they've been rotated clockwise to make players spawn further from the capital, but closer to the town of Aniva, making this far south spawn the closest to the ice sheet route and probably the best loot route on the map. These far south spawns are also the closest spawns to Nogovo Airfield, which has been much improved in terms of loot with this update. Now the whole airfield and the town itself of Nogovo is considered a tier 3 area, much like North Burukan, spawning all the juicy loot that spawns in Burukan. This means you will find the warmest gear on the map in the Nogovo residential areas, the plastic explosive in the industrial areas, and the filtering bottle at the medical tents on the airfield, along with the mini AK, landmines, grenades, and the Vakir, but you won't find the M16 grenade launcher here or in the north of Burukan because it only spawns in the south of Burukan now, which is tier 4. Another weapon that got moved is the SKS, no longer spawning in tier 2, moved to tier 3 only instead, but in exchange for this blasphemy the devs have generously added the VSS to Sakhal, spawning in tier 2 plus military locations. Another exchange that the devs made this patch is nerfing bunker loot, but increasing the chances of you finding a dynamic military container. The chance of finding the AKM or the SVD inside the bunker is now 33% less, and they spawn every 3 hours instead of every 2 hours, and the bunker spawns a lot less ammo compared to last patch, but the biggest nerf to the bunker is how glow plugs will no longer be found anywhere on the map other than the scientist's briefcase. The chance of finding the scientist is pretty much the same as it was last patch, but he now has 14 spawn points instead of 10 in the same locations, so it's slightly harder to find him, spawning the same stuff that he did before. The dynamic containers also spawn the same stuff and had their spawn points slightly moved too, but you'll find them a lot more often now. This is because there used to be 2 to 4 containers at one time on a map. Now there is a huge 12 to 16 containers on a map at once. In fact, nearly every island I went to had a container, so if you find a boat, you've pretty much found a container. You're not far from getting some of the best weapons on the map, but do be aware that the M16 and M4 will now spawn 33% less. Police loot will also spawn less too in all police locations, nerfing the prison camp because it was a bit OP for police gear, but the 4-story apartments and the double house building now spawn a lot more gear, especially in spawn towns, so they're certainly worth looting due to these changes. The final adjustments I found is how the Ada, Gunter and the Saka now spawn across the whole main island, rather than just the right side for the Ada or the left side for the Gunter and the Saka. There were some other smaller changes with this update too, such as the torch getting a heavy nerf. Don't expect a heat buff from this anymore. Drying clothes is now slower too, but we can defrost food faster inside cooking containers, and food defrosts slightly faster elsewhere too. And finally for this patch, bushes will no longer deflect bullets, but trees deflect bullets still on low caliber weapons, so do be aware of that. For the past few months I've been trying to create a way to keep track of map changes for Sakhal, as it's safe to assume that the first version of Sakhal isn't going to be the last version, such as a land extension, the ice sheet changes. We've seen these in this update. It's likely that we're going to get many more updates for Sakhal. I also wanted a place to put my cave map for you guys so you could interact with it instead of it just being an image, but during all of this I must have accidentally misclicked on something because it turned into an entire interactive map for DayZ. It shows stuff like water, dynamic events and vehicle locations across all the official maps for DayZ. I'm not sure how this happened, and it somehow shows the location of any piece of loot too. It's really strange. You should go check that out. But in all seriousness, this is what I'm going to be using to keep on top of Sakhal and other map changes. I'm going to compare the previous version to the updated version, and I'm going to share the results with you guys, which you can also use yourself. This isn't just restricted to me. This is available for free to everybody. Link below if you want to give it a go. I'm going to be developing it over time, so if you have feature suggestions, let me know below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.